Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is the next Orson Welles, my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
Ryan, in the last year, we've covered 2 films in which Adrian Brody perilously navigates the jungle. And I think we need to figure out once and for all, let's litigate, which movie does Adrian Brody have a better relationship with? The Thin Red Line or King Kong?
Oh, that's very different film. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch The Thin Red Line and see how the CGI holds up.
And also how much screen time Adrian Brody has compared to how much time, how long he was on set.
I want to actually, there's somebody out there that's probably clocked it and that infamous showing up to the premiere, right? And then being like, I'm not here. I'm not in this movie at all. I'm not the lead anymore.
Yeah. He did all right.
He did okay. You know,
2-time Oscar winner.
Let him speak, though. If you don't let him speak, then nobody will hear what he has to say.
I almost opened the pod with a full reenactment of his acceptance speech from this year.
I think that's best for all the listeners if we just try to avoid that. You know what? It is funny, though, and this is if you all out there want to go and hear Adrian Brody's speeches again, he actually did say literally the same thing in the first Oscar speech where he told them to stop. And he did that whole please. And so and I saw a video where they were side by side with one another. And it was like, oh, my God, this literally is history repeating itself. But
a man with great confidence.
Exactly.
You gotta give him that.
Isn't he going to be attached to the Evel Knievel Chazelle film is what he supposedly wants to attach himself to?
Is that right?
Good for him. We stand a legend. Anyway, we're here to talk about King Kong, the latest film in our Peter Jackson movie series. And Jay, we're not alone on this journey into the jungle. We're here with a former guest on a regular episode this go around. The last heard him talking about some PTA stuff with us. He's the head of content at The Ringer and the host of the Big Picture podcast. Sean Fennessey, welcome back to Director Watch.
Hello. I am ready to give all of Adrian Brody's speeches once more to you guys. So I'm going to start with the first speech he ever gave after an 8th grade spelling bee victory.
Well, let's kind of think that he won that.
This episode's going to be longer than the King Kong Ultimate Edition.
I did not revisit that version of the movie. I watched the theatrical cut. Is that okay?
That's okay. Yeah, you saved yourself
is the
10
original
minutes, right?
Cut available on 4K?
Yeah.
It is. Yes.
It is. Okay.
Sean, how many versions of the film do you own? Because you are notorious for having a really good physical media collection. How many versions of the film do you own?
Well, I believe I only owned it in Blu-ray and then subsequently 4K.
Okay.
So where that Blu-ray is right now, I don't know, but I watched my 4K yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, right.
But I did not watch the ultimate cut. I watched the theatrical cut. It's the only one I've ever seen. This movie's long enough as it is, so I felt
it's
like
a mere
fine.
12 minutes longer. It's not like The Lord of the Rings.
It's not like where you're adding 40
Is Gollum
minutes.
in the other 12 minutes? Like, what's going on in those parts?
Yeah, it's like this whole Rivendell plot line that somehow they're like in the other part of the forest and
Sauron, see in there?
Yeah, you can see him kind of in the background. There's this whole thing of him trying to get Naomi Watts. It's really awkward.
Okay.
There's really only one big scene added. You're not going to believe it. Dinosaur scene.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't have enough of that in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some dinosaurs in this movie. I don't know if you guys know that about King Kong, Peter Jackson's version.
It is funny. We are recording this shortly after Sean's Playing Check episode of Jurassic Park came out.
That's right.
In which he proposed that there are no good dinosaur movies except Jurassic Park. We are going to challenge that today because this has a lot more dinosaurs in it than Jurassic Park. I would argue it maybe had the most dinosaur footage until probably one of the Jurassic Worlds.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a strong contention. I don't really think that makes it a dinosaur movie, but I hear what you're saying.
No. Yeah.
No. I mean,
if you say King Kong, do you think dinosaurs?
In this movie,
you don't think it, but you sure see
it. You sure get it. You know, I think when I think of King Kong, I think of King Kong. I'm just glad Godzilla. Maybe
it's like
you know what? Godzilla's in
the Furiosa movie.
Godzilla's in the 12 minutes, guys. That's what it is. All right, they just cut that out.
I just watched Godzilla versus King Kong with my 3.5-year-old daughter. She's going down the rabbit hole of Godzilla movies with me, which has been really, really fun. And she loves King Kong. King Kong.
You're talking about the old one.
The old one, 1960.
Okay. I was like, you didn't watch the,
not
you haven't showed her
Godzilla
the new ones
v
yet.
Kong or whatever.
No. None of the cinema have added Wingard for my daughter yet.
Know the host. No,
none of that.
And a guy that, man, that was such a good movie. And then now he's making these Godzilla versus Kong movies.
You mean not the host, the guest?
Oh, the guest. I mean, yes, the guest. Yeah. Sorry, I could. Well,
Yeah, I have faith. He's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I hope so.
He wanted to make some dough. I get it.
Yeah,
it happens.
They're all doing it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Sean, thank you for coming here and doing this. I do this with every guest, and it's the first question we always ask them is, what is your relationship with Peter Jackson as an auteur, as a director? And we've kind of been on this series so far, getting everybody's stories about Lord of the Rings, and we just wrapped that up last week and talked about that whole experience. So I'm kind of curious for the buildup for yourself, where you were at when where you first saw Peter Jackson, and what your relationship is with that trilogy, and then where you were at with this film when it came out.
It's a very good question. My relationship with him starts at 14 years old. That's when the summer of 96 happened. And for my birthday weekend, I saw over 2 days The Frighteners, Kingpin, and A Time to Kill. And
wow.
It was a sick weekend. My parents would not let me go see Trainspotting, which was also out that weekend. But I saw The Frighteners and I fell in love with it. And I did not know about Bad Taste or Meet the Feebles or anything that he was doing down under in New Zealand making movies, but you could tell that he had a real handle, had a real like feel for the sort of like John Landis, Joe Dante style horror comedy stuff that I was already getting really into as a kid. And so I was getting season tickets for him with that movie, which is really one of the last Michael J. Fox studio films.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing he made was the fucking Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, it wasn't hard to get on board with that. And obviously I, like so many other people of my generation and all those before me and after me, just loved those Lord of the Rings movies. I thought they were fabulous and kind of the pinnacle of fantasy filmmaking in so many ways. And so he's a guy I really like and I'm always really interested in, and he doesn't always hit for me. And I'm very intrigued by this movie, even though I don't always love it. Even though I remember having a very big reaction to it. But I mean, all the way up to what he's doing right now, I find to be utterly fascinating. I'd love for him to take a big swing on a real studio production at some point soon, but I'm always checking for what he's up to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Lord of the Rings is the entry path for him, and that trilogy means so much to me. For Jay, this series has been a rediscovery of Lord of the Rings because he wasn't.
Well, yeah,
he was agnostic.
I wasn't allowed to see Lord of the Rings when it came out, so
yeah. And so when you did see it, the last time was like, what, Jay, 15 years ago?
I haven't seen it since high school. Yeah. So 15-ish plus years. Yeah.
But we turned him.
I was just totally Lord of the Rings agnostic. I was just like, I saw him, grew up as more of a Potter kid, just never revisited them for one reason or another, despite going down, this real cinema journey since then. I just, for whatever reason, never went back to those. And then I went back to them for the series, and holy shit, those movies are great. so that was fun. Yeah.
This was 8 years in the making to get him to do this. But then what I always find funny is that, okay, once you get past Lord of the Rings, there is a giant blank check passion project waiting for him. And the history around all that is fascinating because he almost made this movie before even stepping into Middle Earth, and
then it became the most expensive movie ever made.
Exactly, it was, and then probably the movie with the biggest expectations at that time ever. Because how do you
some hype around it?
How do you follow up Lord of the Rings? And remake a important cinematic classic.
I think there's an interesting question about that as to whether or not the 1997 version of this movie would have been better than the 2005 version with a smaller budget and more constraints. You could argue that the expansiveness is kind of what's working against this movie in some ways.
And by all accounts, it was not as direct a remake of the 33 version.
No.
They apparently restructured the script almost entirely to be really beholden to that movie, despite being truly, with the Ultimate Edition, basically twice as long, which is, a choice.
Yes.
You know what it
Yeah.
reminds me of a little bit? Is the Disney live action experience, where every Disney live action film feels beat for beat the exact same as the animated films, and yet is always 40 to 60 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they elongate this when they haven't added anything?
It is truly.
This movie feels that way too.
Yeah.
How is The Lion King? I think it's like 35 minutes longer than the animated version, and I could not tell you why.
Beauty and the Beast feels like that Beauty and the Beast film was like 2:15. It felt like, and that movie is 88 minutes or like 90 minutes.
I think that's the worst one. I think the Beauty and the Beast is the worst remake.
You think so?
That's my take. Yeah,
doesn't have Scuttlebutt.
I'm not crazy about it. I was recently surprised to learn that Cinderella was pretty good. I actually didn't realize.
But seen it. You hadn't seen that one? The Brana film?
Yeah, the Brana film. But I have seen all of them now because my daughter is completely consumed by Disney. And that one, I mean, it's Cate Blanchett as the evil stepmother, and there's like the cast in that film is
Blake James, Richard Madden.
That actually brings to mind a weird thought I had while watching this movie. In that, the original animated Cinderella, you know how that movie in your memory is all about the princess, but in reality, it's about mice. Like that's what that movie's about.
Yeah.
This movie is like, it's a King Kong movie, but mostly it's about dinosaurs. That thought crossed my mind watching it, which was weird.
Is there like, I mean, the Cinderella one you just mentioned, Sean, like is that the best one we have so far? The Pete's Dragon, maybe?
Does Pete's Dragon count?
Pete's Dragon is wonderful. I think that's significantly different from the film. Like in terms of the pure remakes, that's my guy David Lowery. That's a wonderful movie.
Yeah. I just think it's the only one that's made by those two are the only one made by like
it's the only one that you would ever watch instead of the first one.
Or like directors
besmirch Guy Ritchie.
Oh well, that's right. I forgot about it, Aladdin.
I'm a guy. So
yeah. Well, you know what, Sean? Just like the lead actor of that film, come on over and slap me in the face for forgetting Guy Ritchie there. totally forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, no, they hire real. I mean, Nikki Caro made the Mulan live action remake. She's a real filmmaker. It's just like that is not a movie that needs to exist. There's nothing in that movie that doesn't exist in the original Mulan that isn't already working.
Did you guys watch the Peter Pan Lowry film?
Yes, I did.
That movie is. That's weird. It was a weird film. Like I love Lowry. I think he's one of our great American filmmakers. And I just watched.
I think Pan in general is just so hard to adapt.
It's such like a really hard weird film to adapt.
The animated film actually is not as good as you remember.
No, it's not that good. Yeah, that was the Disney canon was a quarantine project for me, and that one was one that didn't really hold.
Did you make it all the way through?
I think I might have quit around like Home on the Range ish, where it was like, I know there's good stuff after this, but this is unsustainable.
Isn't like Sarah Polley doing a Bambi movie?
I don't think that's actually happening now, but it was rumored.
Man, that sounded so like the idea from the show,
Malik
The Studio. Oh, do you think Malik? Oh, that's what he's actually editing. Yeah. He's not got this Jesus movie. It's a Bambi movie. Yeah. Actually, that'd be pretty goddamn good, honestly. We all would watch
Violence
that.
in the natural world. I mean, what's a more resonant theme for Malik than that?
Children losing their parents.
You know?
Holy shit.
Malik's thumper just spinning around in the forest. It'd be wonderful.
Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, now I'm just thinking about that. Anyway, King Kong. That's how we got here. This giant passion project, like you mentioned, Sean, I actually think that back to your point on that, it would have been completely different. Obviously, the CGI would not have been there because that's the whole kicker of this is, and the kicker of Lord of the Rings is that CGI, Weta. I mean, he had that relationship, and that's what sort of got him all in on this properties in the first place. But the advances of Gollum and what Andy Serkis were doing for that film bleeds heavily into this, and then carries that on for modern filmmaking right now. From my understanding, and Jay, I know that you do all the prep for the show more than I do at times. This was going to have like a giant cast originally too, like some of the people that they considered for some of these roles I was reading. I think he was going to reunite with Winslet, and They were thinking about like Clooney and
I think Winslet was in the origin, like the
like, yeah,
96,
and they
97, the
wanted like
90s version.
Clooney to play the Brody character, and
Yeah.
there was rumors of De
I think they talked
Niro
to De
playing.
Niro. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And instead,
But then they turned it into a true remake of the original.
yeah, and they got your guy Jack Black.
They sure did. I mean, interesting. We'll talk about it. I don't know.
We'll talk about it here in a minute. Sean, you rewatched the film. Thank you for doing that. People sometimes don't. They just go off their memory. Your fresh thoughts on King Kong as a film, and what works and what doesn't work for you.
I was mixed on it. I liked it less than when I saw it in the theater. I think I succumbed to the hype when I saw it in theaters in 2005. I'm sure I've seen it between 2005 and 2025.
Do you remember going to the theater and seeing it?
Vividly, yeah. I saw it in New York. I think I saw it at the AMC Lincoln Square.
Okay.
And saw it on a big old screen and was just levitating during the Kong duel T-Rex second act finale. I mean, this is like all-time monster movie fight choreography that you'll ever see. It's like that sequence is so thrilling and so fun, just genuinely ecstatic in terms of using that technology at that time to make a fun and exciting movie. I actually was toggling back and forth a little bit while revisiting the movie. I looked at it because I had to pause it in the middle of the day, and I went to look at it at work, and it's streaming on Netflix right now, only for like another week. And I looked at the Netflix compressed version. It just looks so much worse than 4K, which I know is like a joke, and I'm like literally a public clown for physical media at this point, but it is remarkable how much better it looks on 4K, particularly all of those sequences that are so reliant on this sort of digital animation. So yeah, that stuff worked brilliantly. I think Naomi Watts is fabulous in this movie, perfectly cast. Everyone else, I think, is maybe not operating in the same movie. You know, the tone of performance that they're giving is a little off. I think Adrian Brody in particular is giving a very serious performance in a movie that isn't sure if it wants to be a very serious movie. And so it can feel a bit like a slog at times. And I think the other thing, Jay is just pointing out how close a remake it is and how iconic and understood a story the original story is, even just from its pure imagery, even just Skull Island and the beast emerging in Skull Island, the native people of the island, the beast atop the Empire State Building at the end of the film, or the beast, in chains in a Broadway theater. Like these are images that are burned into our brain as movie fans that teach us about our relationship to being scared at the movies. So the fact that the movie's so reliant on those things in terms of like rebuilding them actually just feels uninspired at this point, especially knowing what an inspired filmmaker Jackson is. But it feels like it was a real like feat of accomplishment. Just that being able to pull it off feels like one of the reasons why he wanted to make it. So I have admiration for that. But I was more mixed on it than I expected to be candid with you guys.
Yeah. Jay, I know that you had seen this one, right, Jay, before you? Right?
Yeah, I'd seen this. Okay. I was actually I had similar thoughts to Sean, where I remember very vividly watching this. It's so funny to hear people be like, "Yes, saw it at the Lincoln Square," and it's like everybody knows that theater. I saw it at the Regal Medlock Crossing. So shout out to all my Peachtree Corners.
Sean, you been there?
Boys and girls out there.
Haven't been. It's just that I'm older than you guys. I was just living in New York City at this time. If I was your age when I saw The Frighteners in 1996, I saw it at the Farmingdale UA on Long Island. Not exactly a legendary movie theater.
Electric theater.
We've been there. We've done a show. No, I'm just kidding. But Jay, you not only watched King Kong, you watched the 1933.
Yeah, I rewatched 33.
And you watched a particularly special film for you as well, the 1976.
76. What a picture.
Yeah.
I mean, who's actually great in 76? I mean, I'm just such a sucker for him.
If you say Charles Grodin, I'm literally just gonna walk.
Yeah, we just did a Lin May. Grodin's great in King Kong. He's so good. But no, I mean, watching 33 as closely to this movie as I did does this no favors. It is what I love about 33, even to this day, and it's just stop motion, and it is so outdated in so many ways as far as effects. I find that movie incredibly transportive. Like I get sucked into that thing so hard. And when you remake it as closely as Jackson does here, it completely pulls you out of that because the only thing you think about is how transportive the original was, and it completely pulls you out of the movie. I think the highs of this movie are really, really high. And yeah, the T-Rex fight sequence, which was, you know, the big hook in the trailer, pulling the jaw apart and all that stuff. It's great. I think the stuff in New York on both sides of the film are very compelling, and I think that's when Jack Black is at his best, when he, you know, is kind of being a huckster, trying to trick everybody into being, you know, this business movie man. He's good at that stuff. It is really odd that he was picked for this role. Apparently, it was because of High Fidelity. When I saw it the first time, I was sure, like, oh, it's the School of Rock effect. You know, I mean, that movie. We don't talk about how influential School of Rock is. That's an important movie. But as much as I love the bookends of this film, the middle just sags so hard. It is overlong. It is a little tedious. And it's just, it's so funny, again, watching these movies so closely to the Lord of the Rings films, the extended editions, which I never feel bored watching. I think those movies are incredibly propulsive. I think all of those action sequences, even if I don't think, I mean, I think the Fellowship to me is just like every action sequence in that movie has its own little mini narrative that keeps it just like clicking along at such a fast pace. I don't think it sustains that entirely, but you feel a motivation behind every action sequence beyond just, I want to flex. This movie is a lot of flexing. It's a lot of flexing. And it's also maybe the most telling scene in the movie. And it's the weirdest scene in the movie too. That incredibly somber spider sequence where the music gets really slow and deep and serious, and there's a sense of dread that Jackson is trying to establish. The only reason that scene exists is because he's a mega fan of 1933, and that's the legendary lost scene from the 1933 version that was so grotesque they had to pull it out of the movie. And it's just fanboy stuff. And maybe that's the fault of us as viewers understanding that background and, you know, the meta text behind that film, which makes it less compelling. But it's watching it in that context, it's a little annoying. It's a little annoying. So I was definitely mixed. I would say I had a similar, in totality, similar response to the movie, but there were I thought the highs were probably higher than I remembered, and I thought the lows were lower. Very much a, you know, kind of mixed bag.
Okay. All right. So I saw this film in the IMAX, San Antonio River Center, downtown. And the only time we ever went downtown to the IMAX, I think we went like twice when I was a kid. And we always dressed up because we always went out to eat. And it was very nice. It was always around Christmas time. And that's when this movie came out. The other time we went was the Polar Express. And let me tell you, didn't like it then. Still don't like it now. Sorry, Bob.
CGI and King Kong better than Polar Express.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very bold take for you. And I'm glad you said
Zemeckis, though, Peter Jackson collaborator.
Very much so. Frighteners. Yeah. What Sean was talking about earlier, and what we talked about.
They love their little toys.
Yes, they do. And at that time, I hadn't seen the original King Kong. You know, and I was like, what, 13 when this film came out, and I hadn't seen it. So like, this was my, outside of the images that you talked about, Sean, like the classic film images, not watching the full film, like this was King Kong to me, and I remember it being pretty good. Like it wasn't Lord of the Rings, but it was a pretty good experience. And it was like, for the technology in 2005, you're like, oh wow, holy crap, they make King Kong look freaking awesome. And you know, it's Andy Serkis doing it. So it's like this very, you know, what they do with Kong here is very good. And
Kong still looks good.
He still looks great. Like there's no disputing that.
Except on Netflix.
Probably so. I didn't watch it on Netflix like Sean did a little bit, but I just remember being like, okay, because when you're younger, you're like, all right, shut up, all you humans, give me to the Kong stuff. So like, for a younger viewer, all the dinosaur stuff's probably pretty cool, right? And I see this movie off and on cable, because this is like a cable movie for a while, and I just like would watch bits and pieces of it. not not full like remote drop, but like watch bits and pieces of it. So this is actually like the first time in a long time I've actually sat down and watched this movie. And I had not to beat a dead horse, I had a very similar experience with you guys because I watched the 33 a couple weeks ago. And that is that's a masterpiece. Like there's no question about that for what it is. Because it's, all its like little imperfections or whatnot. It's such an immersive experience for a movie in 1933. You're like, holy shit. How are they getting away with this? It's magic. And then you watch this and you're like, oh my God, can you cut this? How about this? Like an editor here would do wonders there. There's too many characters talking on a boat. There's too many subplots and storylines. And we don't have two more films and it felt like the Lord of the Rings model and storytelling was brought out into this idea from whatever the original script was in 97. And that has a lot to do with their collaborations with Philippa Bones, who they started working with on Lord of the Rings. And she did a full punch up of the script per Fran Walsh and Jackson's request. And they all kind of threw some new stuff in there. And this movie's 3 hours long. And when you joke about like, oh, it's 3 hours long. No, it is actually 3 hours long. And it feels it. And you're right, Jade. Like there are performances in that are really good in here. Sean, you mentioned Naomi Watts. I think she's incredible. I think she is just one of our underrated actresses. I don't think we nearly talk about how great she can be when she's given this wonderful material or even like lackluster material at times here, but she's literally acting opposite nothing at times, or Andy Serkis probably being like I want to see the behind the scenes of her like interacting with Serkis as he's like walking around like a monkey and being, making all the noises and everything, and her just having to not laugh 100% at that. I think that would be wonderful behind the scenes that we never get. But
Ryan, make sure I let my Watts take out. I've got a Watts take.
Okay. All right. That's fair. But Brody, he's all over the place in this thing. I don't think the writing helps him. It'll be I'll ask you here in a second, Sean, about Jack Black, our most important movie star we have currently in 2025. I actually think like Jamie Bell and Andy Serkis, and the guy that really is still very good to me, was good then, is now, is Kyle Chandler. I think he understands exactly what movie he's supposed to be in. And I wish there was just more and more and more. He
does just look like an old Hollywood movie star.
He's so perfect in this. But I will say that while the film does feel like devoid of sort of originality, I did a lot of research into it. I'm like, why did Jackson really want to make this film? And I was thinking about it, and I knew that we were all going to be here, the three of us. And Sean, I was going to ask you this too. He had sort of like a Sammy Fableman moment when he was a kid and he saw the 33 version up on the screen, and it changed everything for him. It made him want to be the filmmaker he was. And through all my complaints about it, while yes, it's frustrating a little bit as a viewer, I sympathized immediately with him as a filmmaker, because it's like, well, in some ways, Peter Jackson did that for my generation. He put those Lord of the Rings movies up on the screen, and we all thought we could be elves and hobbits and run around and put a ring in a volcano. Like he made us believe in the power of movies. And this movie is that. And for better and for worse at times, this is his love letter to that moment when his mom or his dad took him to the theater and he saw it. And I thought a lot about that and Spielberg and his connection to Spielberg later on. I kind of got sad then, like a day after watching it, about like, oh man, like I wish I liked this movie more, because it feels like this guy put his freaking childhood into it. And I wanted to ask you guys, like, Jay, I think I kind of know your answer. I think it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark for you. But Sean, did you have like a movie when you were young that like when you saw it and it like flipped the switch for you? And
the movie that made you love movies.
Yeah, the movie that made you love movies.
Contemporary to the time of release or historical? Because for Jackson, if he's going back and seeing the 33 version in the probably mid 70s, I would guess is when he saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is this an old movie that I'd not seen before?
It can be. I mean, for me, it's Raiders, which came out,
I mean, I have
10
some
years before I was born.
Yeah, I have some obvious ones. Like I think The Wizard of Oz is kind of a rite of passage because it's a movie you can watch when you're 4 or 5 and it can be legible, but also be magical. I certainly had that experience with it. I have a very strong memory of buying a VHS copy of Singin' in the Rain from one of the kiosk stores in Disneyland after getting off of a ride. I have no idea why they were even selling Singin' in the Rain since it's not a Disney title.
It's not a Disney movie, yeah.
But I bought it there after begging my mom. And so I was having a relationship with that movie. You know, the one that I often talk about that was contemporaneous to my childhood was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was a movie that just split my head open. And I don't know that it inspired me to say, like, one day I will host a movie podcast talking about movies all day, because I didn't know what podcast was, or that was just some way you could make money. But I think I went a little movie crazy because of that movie, because it broke rules that I didn't know you could, where you were just putting characters together that weren't not meant to be together. It was certainly my introduction to the hard-bitten noir shot through the prism of Robert Zemeckis doing cosplay with Bob Hoskins. So I've probably got a lot of examples of that, but I think you're right that Jackson was almost trying to like shake something or close the book on something by making this movie. I think, you know, Scorsese has these things as well. He talks about this all the time with films that he watched on television as a asthmatic kid in the 50s and in the 40s. The thing with that is, though, like, he doesn't remake The Searchers.
No,
he makes his own movie that shoots some of the same ideas through the prism of his experience.
Or similar shot setups, or
but in a New York bar and not in a Western town.
Mm-hmm.
So
early
thematically, and you get that theme. You know, George Lucas very similarly sure, he's doing Flash Gordon or whatever, the serials that he enjoyed, but he's not remaking those characters. He's telling his own story and using those ideas for something original. With Jackson, Jackson is actually wildly original. His first 5 or 6 features are so interesting that he, you know, writes all of them or co-writes all of them. They're all this incredible practical effects that he's applying to it. He's getting the attention of the Zemeckis of the world. Speaking of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So this just, I don't know, this kind of feels like just a step back in some ways, even though it is connected to this childhood memory that you're describing, Ryan. And I don't know. That's not. I would have liked to have seen him just do his own version of King Kong. You know, use that character to tell a different kind of a story, or another giant ape story, or a dinosaur movie, or, you know, something else that just felt more new.
No, I totally no, and I mean, I don't think that means that I'm giving this an extra star bump up because of it. I think it's just a fascinating exercise of when nostalgia by the creator gets in the way of the creative vision a little bit.
Isn't that kind of what this movie feels like? And an exercise.
Yeah.
That's
and
sort of
that this is,
what's his take?
This is also at the top of when someone's on top of the mountain. Like, you know, this is like if Christopher Nolan won for all those Oscars for Oppenheimer and said, you know what I'm going to do? 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm going to make it a 4-hour, 5-hour film. And because he talks about that movie all the time as being something so influential to you, because I saw, you know, and blowing it up, and it's like, okay, well, you got to have a point to it. But I found that to just be a really fascinating thing. It's like, I think he tried to, because he has this giant budget, he has no restraints, he's being like a kid in a candy store with these special effects. He gets to throw everything at the screen, and some of the emotionality obviously kicks in because, like, you know, the smaller stuff, like between Naomi Watts and Kong, that's the best stuff in the film. Mm-hmm. Or the setups in New York towards the first third and the last third are the best stuff. The stuff in the jungle is there's just too much of it, and it takes too long, and there's too many characters, and there's too many side quests, and it feels like a freaking video game version of this rather than an actual movie version of this. And there was an actual video game version of this, and it felt like quests, like, oh, we got to get through these T-Rex, and oh, we got to go through the side of the mountain here, and oh, we got to go through the bug canyon, and, you know, and there's all these different things, and no one's there to tell him no, because it's like, well, it's the guy that made us $3 billion in Lord of the Rings. What are we going to say? No here?
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost, imagine if somebody split The Hobbit into 3 movies, like 3 2.5 to 3 hour movies. It's just like the indulgence of that. Imagine.
No one would ever do that.
No one would ever do that. No, because when we talk about the Hobbits, it's just one movie, right?
Oh my God.
Sean, did you?
I've never seen them.
He's never seen them. He's never
Yeah.
seen the Hobbits. You've seen them, right, Sean?
Yeah, I certainly have. You will see them for this series.
Yes.
I sure will.
Yeah, he will.
I sure will.
Sean, have you ever seen the extended editions of those?
No, and I won't. I don't know if I'll ever rewatch them. Chris Ryan and I have an ongoing, a recurring bit that is a true fact, which is that he and I saw all 3 Hobbit films together because we were living in Los Angeles when they were being released, and people would go home for the holidays, and we would often stay in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I and my wife and his wife would end up going to see those films, which are all like roughly 9 to 12 hours long. And we would sit there, watch them, and then not discuss them afterwards at all. I felt like there was just nothing to say.
I actually have to ask you this question because this is when they got to the Battle of the Five Armies, and I have a lot of complaints about those movies that we'll save for that episode here coming in a couple of weeks. But this is actually a good point that you're making here, Sean. By the time we got to that movie, it just felt like you were doing jury duty, right? To get through that. It didn't feel like, because when an Unexpected Journey came out, there was anticipation. There was like, I mean, maybe not from people, but like people.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like they were re-putting the Lord of the Rings in the theaters, and the extended editions were on Blu-ray again. And
well, we knew Peter Jackson could make really good versions of these kinds of stories.
Yeah,
he literally had done it.
And we're like, okay, cool.
I was a real Del Toro allegiant at that time, though, and the idea of him doing those movies I thought was very exciting. And he has, even though he's also very interested in whimsy and wonder and the magic of storytelling and all these things, he also has a slightly different kind of mean streak than Jackson. And I thought like he could have made a really interesting gross movie. It would have been cool to watch him make a dragon movie, with Smaug. Like there's a lot of stuff he could have done that the best parts of the Hobbit movies just feel iterative against the first trilogy. But
Jackson lost that edge. I mean, Jackson has made grosser movies than Del Toro has ever made.
It's like that episode.
He hasn't done that in 25, 30
Yeah.
It's like that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine loses the punch card for the atomic sub, and she wants to just keep getting that. She wants to get that card back. She's like, I've had to eat a lot of crap to get here. And that's what it felt like watching Battle of the Five Armies. It's like, I have watched a lot of CGI crap in the last 3 years to get here. I gotta finish this.
Interestingly, it hasn't tarnished the legacy of that original trilogy at all.
No, because those movies are so fucking good.
I think they're more beloved than ever.
Yeah.
I think that they
still come out like every year.
Every year, there's a ritual for people to go back to revisit them. It's funny too. I saw Richard Armitage in The Crucible in London when those movies were happening, and he was phenomenal in The Crucible. In a theater in the round, amazing performance on the West End, and I was like, where's this? Why is this?
No, I remember
why
him
is he not popping in those movies. He was supposed to pop in those movies.
I remember him being on the 3rd season of Hannibal, and I was just like, holy shit, he is incredible. Why was he wasted in those movies? Why was everybody wasted in those? And there is a theme that I will say that I think the title of the Battle of the Five Armies is incorrect. I actually think there's only 4 armies in that film, but that's
my understanding is there's a dragon named Smaug.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jay. But
Sounds
anyway,
good, can't wait.
Voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that's right. Oh God, I totally forgot.
Doctor Strange himself.
Doctor Strange. But no, King Kong in this movie, the opening of this movie, I actually really like, and I like the setup of it. It felt honestly a little bit like, the thing about it is it feels very Fellowship sort of setup. Like before we get to the island and everything, we're understanding these characters, we're meeting them one by one. That felt like really good. Like our initial, like that's the good thing about Jackson is like, I think he sets up main characters really well here. Then we get on the boat and we get lost at sea and we're having to hear all this lore and everything. We're like, okay, these are like, there's like 4 or 5 people here that you can attach yourself to, but then there's like 20, 30 people on a boat. And then they all get stuck on the ship. And then it starts playing out exactly like the 33 version. And then the Naomi Watts character is taken by Kong. And that's just much more interesting. And it's actually when the movie is not loud, it's quiet, slows down, and you're able to honestly invest in the relationship, which is the core relationship to the story between her and Kong. And I actually think that he does that well, and he does that really well, because that's the character stuff that we talked about in Lord of the Rings, where it's like the quiet stuff in Lord of the Rings is what makes it just as great as the epic battles that we see on screen. If not, that's what makes it unique. And I think that's what everybody goes back to. I think people kind of forget how little this stuff is between Kong and Naomi Watts, and forget about the, like, just all the CGI.
It's a noisy movie.
Yeah, it's a very noisy movie. And there's I got to say this. The CGI of the dinosaurs is an eyesore to me. Even, and I don't know how
most of it is okay.
I don't think so. Like, outside of, like, the T-Rex scene,
the big Brontosaurus stampede. I guess they're not Brontosaurus. They're not that big, but no dino expert. But that scene where they're really like going under their legs and stuff, that looks outdated for sure.
Yeah, or on the side of the cliff. And I think that that's the other thing is this shows the blueprint of what the Hobbits would be, because there is more CGI in here, and it feels like there's not a great blend of the practical with the CGI, and the CGI is just screaming to me as I'm watching this.
The tech is there now. It wasn't there before.
I know.
And he kind of pioneered that tech in a lot of ways.
And he wanted it bad.
Yeah. It's that Zemeckis thing. He loves his toys.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the blank check jag about how there's no good dinosaur movies, and I think one of the reasons why is that that combination of practical and digital that happens in the first Jurassic Park has just been dispensed with completely. I mean, there's just nothing practical about this movie. It's all digital, and so much of what we see now is all digital. And so even though some of the computer generated imagery is more sophisticated now, if applied properly, I still just don't think it looks as good as the moment when, Laura Dern's got her head on the heavy breathing chest of a dinosaur. Like, there's just something to some of that Stan Winston stuff, that practical stuff, that is missing. And in a movie like this, which is like every vista is fake, it's kind of like the dawning of the blue screen, green screen era in some ways, that we're now kind of living in perpetuity with IP franchise blockbusters. So it's a little dispiriting. I think it's used quite well, I think, in sequences where this is the only way you would have been able to do it. I mean, I cite that fight between the two T-Rexes and Kong. There's no other way to make that work. You just could not make that scene happen. And stop. It's too complex to do it with stop motion. It's too complex to do it with practical design. So, and fast moving and balletic and all the things that make it so special. The bug stuff, it's gross, and Jackson's good at gross.
Sounds crunchy.
Gross.
Yeah, it's very crunchy. And there are definitely a few times where it feels like I don't understand how Adrian Brody has not had his head bitten off by a bug. Those bugs are hanging on him for a long time.
The thing that's made me like shake my head, I don't know if this happened for you, Sean, but like Jamie Bell's like shooting a machine gun at him. How did none of those bullets land
he shoot
him?
like right at him.
Like right at him. Like, don't
doesn't
miss.
Really seem like a guy who's been shooting a lot of machine guns in his life either. Jamie
Sure,
Bell. He's a crack shot.
Like, one of those don't like graze him at all. Like
those machine guns are not known for their accuracy either. Kind of spray.
Jamie Bell would be a good stormtrooper, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
No, bad stormtrooper.
Or maybe, no, because a good stormtrooper means they miss. If he was a bad stormtrooper, he would be accurate, right? Right?
Okay.
Am I right?
Yeah, sure. I can get behind that.
Nobody want to help me here? Okay.
I don't know who any of the actors are who portray stormtroopers except for Tom Hardy. Famously, one time was a stormtrooper in one of the.
He was Daniel Craig. Was he one?
Yes, he was in the Force Awakens. Yeah. So were Prince Harry and what?
Prince Harry was one.
Yeah, weren't they like? Didn't they have a cameo, but it got cut from like Force?
I thought you were going to say Prince. That would have been interesting.
Oh, well, that would have been a really small stormtrooper.
A stormtrooper in stilettos, or big
Prince
old.
Was short.
No,
I'm not saying that at all. No.
God bless the dead.
Oh man, well,
agreed.
Yeah, I love Prince. Jay,
yeah,
you had a thought about 76, right? That who played Kong in '76, Jay?
Oh yeah, it's Rick Baker. Rick Baker played Kong.
Rick Baker played.
It rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks not very good. It's probably some of the worst work he's ever done, but he played Kong. They spent a ton of money building this 40-foot giant robot, and it's in like 10 seconds of the film, and you can really tell when it's there. It's mostly a guy in a suit. It does have, though, more of a take than Peter Jackson's King Kong. It is not nearly as successful, in my opinion, as Peter Jackson's King Kong, but it has a twist on the story, which is that instead of being about pure entertainment, it's about an oil executive who thinks that there's oil underneath this undiscovered island in the Indian Ocean. And then it mostly just turns into King Kong after that. But it does have Charles Grodin, which is great.
But does this movie have to have a point in order for it to be made, or could it just be exactly what it is, which is
I think one of the biggest problems with it is that it doesn't really have a take.
Yeah.
And one of my ideas about this movie is I find the 33 version actually largely more grotesque and jarring than this movie. There's the scene where they throw the people off the cliff in the 33 version that is essentially composed and played like the scene in Midsommar where the elders jump off and fall directly into a rock. I winced at that. I don't wince at anything in this movie because none of it feels tactile at all. So it's,
you know what is actually one of the most painful feelings in the movie physically is when Kong finally is successfully chloroformed, even though it's entirely CGI, but Jack Black smashes the glass against
right in his face.
Yeah.
I do love Chekhov's chloroform early in the film.
Back around. I feel like 76 is most notable for being like the first really big American Dino De Laurentiis movie. You know, that's like, you know, he had produced a couple of movies after working in Italy for 15, 20 years. And then that was like his first boondoggle. And he had many after that. But its legacy is kind of nil, you know, like Jessica Lange.
Yeah, it hasn't sustained at all
to audiences, but it's not a movie that people go back to. It hasn't been canonized in any way. It's not a camp classic. It just has a very low profile for what was probably the biggest production of that year.
I think so. It was. I looked at the budgets for that year, and it was the highest that I could find. Meanwhile, Rocky was the highest grossing, and it cost like 1/25 of what King Kong made or cost. So, I mean, it's a very boring movie mostly, and it's very kind of chintzy looking for as expensive as it is.
Well, the problem with like this film, and then even like, because I was thinking a little bit about also too these Godzilla movies, the Godzilla Kong movies, the Godzilla Skull or the Kong Skull Island movies that have been made over the last couple of years, and what's like the running
Kong
narrative.
Skull Island defender here, by the way.
Yeah,
I think that one's kind of fun.
Oh, you think so? Okay,
fun adjacent.
Sean, that's a big no for you. No.
I liked when John C. Reilly showed up.
Okay.
Yeah, crazy John C.
Reilly. I think that's like a universal thing. If John C. Reilly was just in any movie, I think you'd be okay with him showing up.
That part. I thought that was fun. I don't know. What's that filmmaker's name? Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just feels like a director who should be making video games.
I think that's what most of those films are like. I mean, like most of those films, there's so much stuff with the humans, and like there's so much minimal time with the creatures, or even the fight sequences, or even like actual decent looking fighting sequences at times. Because now they're just kind of like, no offense to Wingard, but like they're so colorful and wild and weird and all over the place that it just feels like it's just CGI thrown up on the screen. And at least with this, regardless of what you think of the CGI, like it is clear and you can see the action, and
it's a classy movie.
It's a classy movie, if not a messy one. But I was just thinking a lot about like how it's so hard to make these darn things, because you have to find this weird balance for what does an audience expect out of a Kong and Godzilla movie, like individually? And I don't think American filmmakers or productions made, by American companies have been able to do that. But then you think of Godzilla -1, and you think of a movie like that where it's like, okay, we are going to spend time with these characters, and the monster is going to be the most terrifying thing on the planet, and it's going to have a point to it. And the CGI and everything is great, but the story still centers around these human characters that you connect to.
It's the Jaws rule.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. When you get too much exposure to the monster, it waters itself down over time.
But people want the monster. People want these monsters.
People think they want the monster.
I mean,
but you know what people are still watching is Jaws.
Yeah, but you know what people are going to see for like $1 billion a year is the Jurassic World films. Now, regardless of quality, they're going to see those things for $1 billion a piece. So they are telling you and they see the Kong films. So they tell you, we want to see these guys. So give us all of this, regardless of these characters. They would prefer a movie with none of these characters. And that's, I don't know, that just seems it seems like a sad, I mean, it just goes back to the ongoing sad state of
Scarlett Johansson coming soon.
Jonathan
I think
Bailey.
There's just a meaningful difference between the present day Kong films and Godzilla films, setting aside Godzilla -1, but even including that if you want to, and Jurassic, those are all spectacle movies. Those are turn off your brain blockbusters that the primary directive is to get butts in seats and make money. They're not thematic lodestars. They don't really tell us anything about the way that we live. They don't even really do anything new from like a personal emotional engagement with fear or our origins as living creatures in the world, the way that a lot of these other movies do. The problem with this King Kong movie that we're talking about and its relationship to the original Kong, which is like really just freighted with so many ideas about like the natural world and the way that we pillage it and our misunderstanding of power versus grace and what is worthy of beauty and what is not, and what is worthy of display and entertainment and what is not. I mean, it's a really, really heavy, deep, idea-driven movie. And this new one is meant to be that too, but because it's so iterative of the original, those themes don't feel like explored at any more depth really than in the original film. And so a movie from a filmmaker who we know can handle some of that stuff in Jackson, who's got big ideas about brotherhood, friendship, destiny, purpose in life. That's what the Lord of the Rings films are completely about defining yourself in the face of struggle. God, who are we even rooting for with in King Kong? I mean, the only person we really love is King Kong.
Well, I mean, even Naomi Watts' storyline, like
she's kind of just a vessel.
She's an archetype. Yeah, she's just an archetype.
I mean, she does a great job with it.
Not that Faye Ray was some like dramatically drawn deep character, but in a 3-hour and 10-minute movie where you're getting significant screen time for somewhere between like 9 and 12 characters, you'd think there'd be more to them than just those kind of pencil sketches from the original. And the movie just doesn't do that. It doesn't ultimately supply you with that. You don't really get a deeper sense of Carl Denham or why these things are important to him. You don't really get a deeper sense of
why Jack
even
Driscoll
what Brody's purpose is. He's a writer. He's Barton Fink, but he's a swashbuckler. Who is that character? I don't know anything about
he's
everybody just has to turn into an action hero.
Yeah. Exactly.
At the end of the day.
I mean, like
the things that are blown out are not the character arcs or the ideas; they are the action sequences.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally. I mean,
just kind of comes and goes a lot of the time.
What do you guys think of Jack Black in the film? Because I feel like that's where a lot of the sort of pointer message of the film is within Carl Denham, and because this whole thing is his idea.
I kept thinking, is Peter Jackson trying to say something about filmmaking and the nature of portraying violence?
Is he injecting himself into that a little bit? You know what I mean?
I'm sure he relates to that character about the sort of like inexplicable desire to capture the image,
making him look like Orson Welles. Having this. Against the studio, against all odds, I'm going to make my Kong film. Anyone's going to make their passion project at what cost? You know what I mean? And have to sell your soul, or
that cost $207 million, by the
way. Which I believe the original budget was 150. They got to 175, and then the rest of it he financed himself. If it went over that was part of the deal. But he made I think 20%.
He made that back for sure.
He made it all back. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Peter? Maybe if you were willing to leave the country of New Zealand, you would have saved some money.
Yeah.
Instead of completely recreating New York, in Auckland or whatever.
Yeah. But Jay, your guy, Jack Black, his performance, what do you think?
My guy, Jack Black?
Well, you love him in The Holiday. Like Jay, when we did Nancy Myers last year, and he eviscerated Jack Black in The Holiday. I think that Jack Black's kind of charming and kind of works for it. You know, I don't actually have an opinion either way on it, but Jay's like firmly against it. But he's
Jack Black reenacting the film scores in Blockbuster is I think worse than anything in King Kong.
Oh. I'm not a big fan of The Holiday.
Okay.
I have an ancient relationship to him because I probably first saw him doing side performances with Tenacious D on Mr. Show on HBO in the 90s. That was probably the first time that I saw him. And it's always found him very charming. His whole character was kind of fully formed there. This sort of like metalhead obsessive who actually could play. You know, that's kind of his whole persona was, I'm a big dork with huge bulging eyes, but also I'm super talented and weirdly charismatic, way beyond my physical presentation. It is remarkable to me that he's been able to play that chord for 35 consecutive years in Hollywood and is like never been bigger. I'm blown away by the fact that he can carry Minecraft and Jumanji and all these movies and it still works. In this movie, I just think he does not have that next gear of dramatic chops, and it needs it. You know, there needs to be real pathos in Denim, and you need that final line reading. You need to feel like you just got hit by a truck when he shares that iconic phrase, and you just know you don't ever really feel. You feel like maybe he is obsessed, but you don't know why. You don't really understand what is driving him. You don't really understand the complexity of his mission and the way that he's tortured by this quest to get the image, get the story, capture the ape, bring it to the world. You know, you could easily read into the psychology of it. You know, a small man who needs something else to draw attention to his greatness because he can't do it himself, and utilizing what's in the world, beautiful women, beautiful men, these creatures. I get all that as an idea, but you don't feel it in the performance. You know, it's something that you can intellectualize after the movie, but you want to feel like you understand it when you're watching it, and I just don't. So maybe it's just miscast.
That I think last line should hit you like a ton of bricks, and maybe it's also
no, it shouldn't hit you like a ton of bricks because it's the thing from the other movie.
No, it should. No, like it should. You should like. To Sean's point, to y'all's point,
they didn't do that in the 76 version.
Well, there you go, and that's its problem.
The World Trade Center, not the Empire State
Building.
Which is a far less dramatic building to climb up because it doesn't have like the horizontal changes to it.
Yeah, but I don't know. You should. I remember when I first saw it, and maybe it's just because like I saw School of Rock and all his films from that time, but it was such a shift at the time for Jack Black to be in the third lead in Peter Jackson's film and to play essentially by the end the bad guy, right? You know, and flip on Kong. And to your point, Sean, like that moment where he throws that chloroform on Kong because you're so invested in Kong as a character and what Andy Serkis is doing, which I mean, side note, just Andy Serkis, a genius, like as always delivering these insanely rich performances, even though like his
dual role,
even though his other performance as Lumpy is there are choices, and I can understand why he's more known for the CGI bits, but he gets you through that CGI, through that motion capture performance, through what he does. Andy Serkis gets you to buy into this larger than life being, and Black there with his turn, and just because of what's there, you buy into. I at least still buy into the fact that he turns evil because he's vengeful, because he's upset that he's losing this film. He needs to have something to come back because he's desperate at this point. You know, he's got to collect on his investment. The logic of getting this damn giant ape all the way back to New York never made sense to me in a million years. How you're going to get him back there, don't know. I guess that's the magic of movies. We'll have to figure that one out.
Not explained.
That small boat's not getting him back. It could barely get through the waters as it was, but that's, I guess, and that's not in the extended. So there you go. I don't know. I feel like more in the first half of the film, I thought he was very good. I think the second act when he has to turn, he has to be more villainous. And then he's not angry, he's not upset. He's just kind of like, oh, well, it's over. And it leaves, the film doesn't do him any justice, I think, in terms of wrapping up that character's arc and I don't necessarily think he's terrible, but I don't think I don't know if he's not miscast. I think the writing lets him down. Just like I think the writing lets down Brody. I don't know what that character, to your point, Sean, his motivations are. I don't, outside of, oh, he falls in love with Anne, like he has this epiphany about that he's got to run back to be with her. And then Colin Hanks literally like explains capitalism to him and like how to make a buck, and why she wouldn't return, and which, again, another plot thing where I'm like, well, okay, if she doesn't want to return and that's the only thing that's going to keep him from going and killing everyone, maybe, just maybe, leave him on the damn island. Because like, if you can't get her in, and also, was there not a rehearsal of this to see if he would, it all feels, the ending on the stage and all that, it feels super rushed. Like none of these people planned any of that out. And it kind of feels, the ending itself just kind of feels rushed to get to the iconic Empire State Building. But the stuff in the park and on the ice and that stuff, which is pretty much like a mirror of the stuff in the jungle, that's kind of good stuff too. I don't know.
The one part I do really like on Broadway is when they bring the blonde up and present her to Kong, and then she lifts her head up and it's not Anne. I think that moment.
And then he's like,
really
huh?
Well. Yeah. And then he just gets really pissed off.
Yeah. I do like the shot of like their hubris on the side of the stage and be like, let him roar. It's like, yeah, I don't think that that's what you want. I think you want him to be quiet.
Poor Colin Hanks.
Yeah.
They didn't treat him very well.
No.
You think can I rip off my Naomi Watts take?
Yes, you can.
Okay, let's talk about her. I think she's very good in this movie. Naomi Watts, I would say, largely has been underserved since her early mid-2000s. But my take on her is that she is one of the greatest actresses in the world when you ask her to give an unnatural or out-of-period performance. And when you ask her to play a very grounded character that you would find on the street, I think she is significantly less successful. I think if you look at all of her best performances, they are, for example, in this movie where she is really channeling an older form of acting. When you look at Mulholland Drive, she is channeling a completely different form of acting, as well as this incredibly, a character who inhabits this incredibly surreal reality. I think even in Birdman, I think she's very good in, and that is this incredibly heightened reality where she is asked to be melodramatic in a lot of ways. And I think when she's just playing, I mean, unfortunately, she has reached the period of her life where now she is just usually mom. When she is mom, I don't think she has nearly the same power.
Sean?
Not opposed to the take.
Yeah.
I like Naomi Watts fine. She's not an all-timer for me necessarily. I think she's kind of typecast into roles that emphasize her ability to portray the tragic, and very rarely is like light and breezy. Did you guys see The Friend?
Yeah, I saw The Friend. Jay, did you see The Friend?
Is that the Bill Murray one?
Yeah, with the dog.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Sean, did you meet the dog?
I did not meet the dog.
Come on, Sean. He was at Telluride. You could have met the dog there.
I'm not in it to meet the dogs.
You want to meet the dog? You like the dog's nice. I was in New York when I was in New York. The dog stayed at at the same hotel I was at. I came out to get a coffee one morning. He was there. Super nice guy.
They're
super nice.
The dog travel too much.
Yeah,
I love
let the dog be.
Yeah, he should.
Against dogs. I didn't meet the fucking dog from Anatomy of the Fall.
I didn't meet
Beethoven.
That dog scared the shit out of me. The one from Anatomy of a Fall.
Grodin.
Grodin,
great in Beethoven.
Yeah, you're talking to the number one Grodin guy in the universe right here, so you don't have to tell me.
All right, I'll take number 2.
All right, I'm gonna step out. You guys take the room.
You can have number 1, Jay. It's fine. Grodin is my hero. He's my whole personality is based on Grodin. I think she's fine. I think in this movie she's great because she's asked to do vaudevillian work and she pulls it off quite impressively. She literally juggles, dances on her head. She has that wildly expressive face. I think the surreality aspect is a good point, Jay. I think she's in worlds that are illogical. She tends to work really well. she's kind of an old school melodramatic actress, you know. And I don't think 21 Grams is very good, but I think she's very good in it because she is able to express that, like, the extremity of pain that character is going through. If you dropped her into a rom-com, she's done rom-coms. She's not a charmer, you know. She's beautiful and she's interesting to be with, but she's not like a pure charmer. And so somehow her career is weird because she got like a late start, even though she was best friends with Nicole Kidman, didn't get over to the States making Hollywood movies till later in life relative to some of her peers. And so I think those first things that you really saw her in, Mulholland Drive, etc., like kind of typecast her for the next 20 years.
I totally agree. I think that when people think of her, they think of that film and they think of what unusual circumstance can we put her in, and trauma. And I think the crying,
funny games, you know, like look
the
at the
crying scene in at the dinner table in Mulholland Drive, I think has kind of just haunted her. But then I
didn't realize quite how old she was in Mulholland Drive.
But then Sean,
she would have been like 31 or 32.
I remember seeing her in The Friend, and I thought, I was like, well, this is very charming and very different. But then, like, there's a lot of shit that happens in the third act of that movie, and it's very emotional by the end. But it's a light film for the most part. And I'm like, why doesn't she get to do more stuff like this? Because like Julianne Moore gets to do this, Cate Blanchett gets to do this, even Nicole Kidman and whatever wig she decides to wear gets to do it.
Company you're talking there.
Well, no, I mean those are her contemporaries. But, you know, those are the people, like, I mean, she came up with Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman gets to be in everything. She gets to play any type of role, whether good or bad, whether, it's, whether it's Pretty Little Liars or Holland. She gets to be in anything she wants to be, whether it's Eyes Wide Shut, whether it's being in the Ricardos. Like, she can show range, even if it's not particularly good. Like, she's considered the greatest actress, one of the greatest actors of her generation and from that area. And her friend is sadly typecast. You know, it's like when you see something like Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is a wonderful actor, but he was typecast as like a villain for 45%, 55% of his career, or it still probably is to a certain degree.
One of the things about Willem Dafoe, though, is he looks like Willem Dafoe.
Exactly.
So you kind of you pick your lane.
He could have been Gollum. Should have been. That would have been.
Off the top of your head, what is the last movie that Naomi Watts appeared in that made more than $30 million at the box office? If you had to guess.
Oh my God, more than $30 million.
I mean, would Birdman be the right answer, or The Book of Henry?
Book of Henry.
Book of Henry.
Maybe Divergent. Allegiant. She was in Allegiant.
Did The Glass Castle make any money?
No. The Book of Henry made $4 million, so it's Allegiant. That's 10 years ago.
In Book of Henry, she
made $4 million.
A gamer mom.
Yeah.
Well, she has
the thing. Her career is interesting. I mean, she's a 2-time Academy Award nominee. She's a big star for a hot minute there. And 21 Grams and The Impossible were nominations. The star of this movie, which made an insane amount of money, wasn't this like the third or fourth highest grossing movie of the year? It made like $600 million.
Yes,
really well.
It's an incredibly big film, and
she's on the poster, you know?
Yeah, and yet it's like, honestly, even still then, probably in 2005, you're like, wouldn't expect her to be leading the King Kong film, but like, cool. She's the best thing that comes out of it, outside of my guy Kyle Chandler, who I feel like understands every bit of the assignment here and knocks it out of the park. Like Kyle Chandler I've had that stock for a long, long time, and I was just, when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, this guy gets it. I love Kyle Chandler. Always have, always will.
He's very funny running away from the dinosaurs the first time. He
gets his big hero moment when he's swinging.
He's swinging. Oh my God.
Swinging in the, what is that? Is that in the spider scene? Maybe.
How did he not die with the dinosaur stampede?
That's my question. How did not all of them die during the dinosaur stampede?
Also, why don't they just lean against the wall and the dinosaurs run by?
Yeah, that was the problem I had with Jamie Bell. I was like, why are you making this more difficult than you have to? I know you're a kid, but like
a foot race with dinosaurs.
Was it Prometheus where the giant thing is falling down and she just continues to run?
Oh, and Charlize is running in a straight line? Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was,
I don't know. Movies. Sometimes you just got to be like, it's a movie.
Yeah, you know? I guess. But like, I don't know. He tries to make it as real as possible.
I mean, if they all died in the dinosaur sequence, it would be a pretty short movie. Although actually it wouldn't be. It would be a regular length movie. And that's not what we're going for here.
Well, I mean, I do love the part where like Jack, he's like shooting the canyon and all the dinosaurs are there. And it's right before the stampede. And Chandler just like looks and sees potentially like this could be like a big problem, and he just kind of like slowly walks back, and it's just like it's little things like when he shows up to his room and he thinks it's a suite, or like he's in his room and he's posing and stuff. Like he just, I don't know, he just gets it. And I'm not saying like I wanted him to be like the lead of any of this, but like it felt like that's the care was put in some of these smaller characters, or the lore was put into some of these smaller characters. And then when it came to Brody and Black's characters, which should be really interesting, really fleshed out, and there should be almost like a fight between them, right? Because Brody doesn't want to be there because he's this playwright and on the stage, and Jack's about like spectacle and making this big film, and it's and everything. And there should maybe be this commentary about big films and small film, or small art versus big art, and what that should look like and what that should make you feel. The fucking movie doesn't want to do any of that, so it's weird. Is there anything else you guys want to mention or talk about with King Kong before we start wrapping it up here? Or Sean, have you got everything out about this film that you want to?
I think so. Why did I choose this?
That was a good question. Why did you choose this?
I don't know. You gave
probably
me,
talked about Lord of the Rings too much.
I gave you carte blanche.
Well, I really dig Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles. They're so hard to fucking watch. When can we get these movies on 4K for Christ's sake? It seems like Peter Jackson's like
you want to Meet the Feebles on 4K?
I think there is like a 4K AI up thing on YouTube.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's not we're not in a great place, but that's
you guys
the easiest way to watch
Silver?
the movie.
We did not.
No, the first movie we covered for the series. We don't go through all of them. We did Dead Alive / Brain Dead was the first one we covered.
But we do talk about most of them.
I've watched all of them. I've not watched Forgotten Silver.
Forgotten Silver I was made aware of in college, or maybe right before I went to college, and it really kind of turned my head around when I was starting to learn more about cult movies and Giallo and kind of getting like real movie crazy when I was 16, 17. And it's really fun. And it's weird to think that this guy who was making these gross out horror movies and these very odd mockumentaries would go on to be the guy who would make the biggest King Kong film of all time. It's just very strange. The Frighteners is still like a genre movie, Hollywood genre movie, but Forgotten Silver is like literally a fake doc about a guy who was one of the forefathers of cinema from New Zealand. And you really need to give a shit about movie history to pour your life into making something like this for no money in New Zealand. Just the whole project is so strange. He was just such an idiosyncratic, esoteric filmmaker. And then he becomes such a mainstream director. It's just fascinating that his career went in that direction. And now he's kind of retrenched. And I find that the Beatles documentary and the World War I documentary are very connected to Forgotten Silver. They're very synced with that movie and what it's trying to do in terms of like recreating the look of 1920s, 1910s New Zealand. So this is kind of like right smack dab in the middle of his Hollywood period. And I was really starting to pay close attention to Hollywood when this movie came out. So maybe that partially informed, but my fascination with him originally is clearly driven by The Frighteners and then trying to go work backwards from there and find all this other stuff that he made, which was also strange.
Sean, where do you think this is another question I've been asking everybody. Where do you think he goes now? Not after King Kong, because obviously we know where that goes. But now he's made these
Rolling Stones documentary. I don't know. Do you like the Stones?
I have no idea if he does or he doesn't. But you said that you would like to see him do something. But what is that something, Sean? Like what would you hope that he does? Because I feel like it's going to be sadly something closer to The Hobbit more than it would be. Even closer to this or Lord of the Rings.
It's been 11 years since the Battle of the Five Armies. I mean, he's not really giving the sense that he wants to make another movie like that, right?
No, that's why I told Jay, it's like, weirdly, I think he is this generation's George Lucas. Like, that's been my sort of thesis.
He's still not that old.
No, I know, but he's
64 this
year. But it feels like he's got nothing on the horizon. You know, he's not
He's got more
Jones
money
into,
than God.
yeah.
He's just
Why would
chilling?
they keep releasing those damn 4Ks of Lord of the Rings on steelbooks and stuff? And it's like, why would I want to release? I mean, he hasn't gone down any alternative routes. I guess his extended editions are the closest thing to it, but he's not jonesing to go back and recut anything there. But yeah, I don't know what he would want to do. I didn't know if you had a thought of like what you would like to see him do. I mean, even something small, right, would be kind of wonderful too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember he was a really big champion and producer for District 9. And
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see him kind of sink his teeth into something like that, you know, like bring a lot of the tools that he's learned over time to a slightly smaller original story, to bring some of that kind of manic sensibility from the first 10 years of his career to an original. I'm obviously a little bit poisoned by the Sinners experience right now, but I just think filmmakers who have leverage should be trying to apply that leverage to quality studio audience experiences. And it's a lot of work to make an original genre story, and he doesn't need to because he's so goddamn successful and already minted forever. But wouldn't an original movie from Peter Jackson made for movie theaters just be so exciting? Would that be such a great event movie?
I mean, it's kind of like, you know, why I feel like he could do like what James Cameron does. Like he could create something. He has an ability to tap into people, and he knows how to storytell.
Avatar doesn't exist without Peter Jackson, at least in the form that it is in.
Exactly. And I mean, it's like, you know, I want him to return, and maybe that's just nostalgic because he was such a big part of all of our lives, and that trilogy means so much to all three, you know, newly Jay.
2.5 of us, I guess.
2.5 of us, I guess. But at least, you know, Sean, you know what I mean? Like, it means so much, Lord of the Rings, that it's like, man, I'm rooting for you. Please go and do something and everything. But Jay, any final thoughts on this King Kong before we wrap it up?
No, I want him to make the Halo movie like 15 years too late.
Oh, shit.
Let's bring it back.
Well, they have the television show now. I don't know if you guys ever watched that.
Oh my God, they do have that TV show, don't they? Was that on Paramount?
It was on Paramount Plus, I believe.
I never watched it.
Never watched it.
Pablo Schreiber, right?
You would know more on that than I would, Sean. I never watched a single episode of that television show. Never played
Master
it.
Chief. It's probably like Pedro Pascal in Mandalorian, where they never have to work at all. They spend like 4 hours.
Oh, they do the voice, and then somebody else is actually like doing all the work. Yeah, probably
that's the dream gig right there.
I never played Halo. Did you play Halo, Jay, a lot?
Passively, I would play it at other people's houses.
Sean, were
the
you
old
a Halo
split
guy?
screen experience? Those were the days.
Sean, a video game guy?
Haven't been much of a gamer since the 90s, to be honest with you.
What were you rocking in the 90s, Sean?
Good question. Certainly Madden. Played all the sports games, NBA Live. I, as a young kid, played Sonic the Hedgehog and The Legend of Zelda and all those games. All those OG classics. I'm aging myself here. But
no, it's okay.
I mean, Halo is like, that's probably right around the era where I've completely checked out of gaming.
Yeah.
The return of college football was a big deal for me this year.
Yeah.
I really brought the UAB Blazers to glory.
That's that Georgia talking right there.
Well, he's an Auburn guy. He's not a Georgia.
Yeah, so I've basically turned my back on football, but it is what it is.
Georgia.
Oh, okay. Well,
not that you need to be a Bulldog.
Okay. Well, you never, could be. It's a good time to be a Bulldog fan. Jay, before we get out of here. Yeah, that's where you respond. Okay, cool. Before we get out of here, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film that we just reviewed, King Kong. In this segment, we'd call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. Now, Sean, I don't know if you know the answers to this already, but Jay is our, we have awarded him the rank here at AwardsWatch as the premier award prognosticator. And so with that, we like to test his knowledge to see if this film was nominated.
Just like to say, on Twitter this week, I was called an Oscar expert. Yes,
and I would like to get that person drug tested and see how they're doing, literally. But Sean, if you know I don't know if you know the answers to this. If you do, don't help. But if you don't, you can help. Does that make sense?
I don't know whatever you're going to ask.
Okay. So Jay, King Kong. We talked about this. We talked about this with Lord of the Rings. Big embrace by the Academy, right? They love those movies.
They loved them.
So the question is, Jay, was King Kong nominated for any Academy Awards? And if so, what was it nominated for?
I'm almost certain it was. I'm almost certain it got nothing above the line.
That is correct.
I'm going to go visual effects, slam dunk. I'm assuming it won.
That is correct.
Okay. Big blockbuster, you normally just go sound.
Okay.
One or the other, maybe both.
Sean, do you know?
I do.
Okay. It won both. It was nominated for both.
It won both. Okay, so that means this might have been like a technical landslide potentially.
Well, much like in the film.
Think about it.
A technical landslide.
like when all the Mad Max, the crazy Mad Max guys.
Man, that was a great night when all just weird people were walking up on the Oscar stage.
And they were like, every part of this movie is the best. The movie itself, meh.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh boy. God. They might have just thrown it a bone on score.
Nope.
No, they replaced. The composer was replaced on this movie.
Who originally did it?
Howard Shore.
Howard Shore? Oh,
he got booted.
He got booted.
Peter Jackson said. I think it was sort of mutual, but
Howard Shore is so important to Lord of the Rings.
That lovely partnership.
Yeah, no more.
Strange that he got booted after doing the Lord of the Rings score.
Like literally is one of the most important parts of Lord of the Rings.
That was a successful partnership on Lord of the Rings. I'll go so far as to say.
No question. I just was talking to David Cronenberg this week. Sorry for the name drop. We were talking about his 50-year working relationship with Howard Shore. He scored, I think, all but 2 of Cronenberg's movies.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you say that. Cronenberg is our guest for the Lovely Bones episode.
Amazing. That's so exciting.
In cross promotion with the Shrouds.
How much better the Lovely Bones would be if it was directed by David Cronenberg. Holy shit!
That would be really good.
Great adaptation.
We talked about that a lot.
King Kong actually would have been good with Cronenberg.
Man, he would have been excellent.
It would be super gone. It would be wild.
What movie
probably
isn't
hour
better
50?
with Cronenberg? That's a good game to play. You can go down the list.
Probably Minecraft. I don't think he would be able to understand the mechanics of that.
No way. What are you talking about? Mining and crafting, rebuilding.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
that's in the Cronenberg mold.
I actually, in many ways,
I've awakened Sean.
Chicken Jockey sounds like a demented creation from the mind of David Cronenberg
doubt.
in many ways.
The Chicken Jockey would actually be played by Vincent Cassell, which is wonderful.
James Newton Howard is a good composer.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is.
Dark Knight, it's pretty good.
Solid.
Name anything else?
Pretty Woman. He did Pretty Woman.
Yeah, he's a little bit. He's a little bit of a workman.
Yeah. Anything else, Jay?
Sense?
Great
score.
Sixth Sense. Yeah.
He's
The Village.
He's a Shyamalan guy.
Movies, yeah.
His score for The Village is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I like James Newton Howard. He's solid.
Starring Adrian Brody.
And
Adrian Brody giving a very delicate performance in The Village.
The Village is a top tier Shyamalan movie for me. I think that
movie.
Agreed.
I think that movie's incredible. I think like that 4-film run for Shyamalan is one of the best 4-film runs ever. Who?
Deakins.
Oh, yeah.
He's good.
Deakins is good.
I'm going to say no more Oscar nominations.
You'd be incorrect.
Damn it.
They got nominated for Best Art Direction or Production Design.
Oh, all right. I should have gotten that one.
Sadly, no Stooms, which are what we
Stooms.
call.
They could have gotten Stooms.
Which, Sean, is what we call best costumes around here. Best Stooms. Yeah, Stooms. If you want to take that with you, you're more welcome. Yeah, if you want to take it with you, you're more than welcome to.
No, you guys can hold that one. That's
it's universal now. Everybody's using it at the Academy. They're going to make they're actually going to make the membership say it now.
Right, just like they have to watch all the movies now.
Yeah, you have to watch the movies and you have to call it Stooms.
How do you guys feel about that? They got to watch the movies now. Is that you think it's a good idea?
Oh, you mean they have to actually do their fucking jobs? Like, congratulations.
Not their jobs. They don't get paid. This is a public service that they're doing.
Yeah, but they get to go to. They can see all these movies for free though,
on the Academy portal, and now we'll be able to
know
whether
its screenings
or not.
And it's screenings.
I just find it weird. Like, do you think all these? Do you think George Clooney is going to want the Academy to put a Ring camera in his living room? I don't think he wants that.
I mean, they're
implying that they don't already have one in there.
Oh, they have one implied. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what the DNC gave him.
Right now, Jay.
I mean, oh my God, they have to watch like 30 films a year. Oh my God, that's like less than a film a week. That's like what Sean watches in an afternoon. You know what I mean? So
catch up to me, Academy.
Yeah.
I've been putting in the hours for years.
We all have. I've been saying it. Why can't we be in there? We could do a much better job, right, Sean?
There's an argument that Sean should actually be able to choose the winners by himself.
Thank you for saying that.
Coming soon to the Ringer, Sean's Academy Awards.
Many people agree.
Rename them the Fennesseys.
The Fennesseys. Oh, there you go.
If you ask some of our greatest filmmakers, they will agree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did Cronenberg say, you know what, just give him the
directed
Why are
Minecraft?
you giving me the Oscar rating?
Yeah, why?
Sean. And
Yeah.
I said, David, if only I could. And I kissed him right on the mouth. Thank you, sir, for everything you've done.
This year, of course, is Sean's favorite Best Picture winner. It is the 2006 Oscars for the films of 2005. This is the year of Crash.
Whoops.
Sean's a beloved Crash. He actually has 6 copies of it.
The Cronenberg Crash. Great film.
I love that film.
This is the Paul Haggis Crash.
I saw Crash in theaters. Did
you think racism was solved at the end of your screening?
No, but the vibe when the movie was released was not.
I know what you're going to say.
It was not.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying I loved it. It was very similar to Green Book, where everybody was like,
exactly.
Okay, either I liked it or I didn't like it, or I'm going to go on with my day.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody realized it was going to become the worst Oscar winner of all time. And so no one thought about it that way until it became that. And especially in the light of Brokeback Mountain, the fact that is like a masterpiece and a beautiful movie. And, so clearly what should have won that year for so many different reasons. But it's important to note that when we went into the movies to see Crash and we're like, it was a little ham-fisted, just seemed a little obvious and easy, and maybe actually reinforced some of the things that the movie thinks it's undoing.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't like, we should kill Paul Haggis publicly and the Academy Award should be disbanded. No one said that then.
No. So, Sean, I totally agree with you. I saw the film it was on Blu-ray or DVD right before like the Oscars. I remember watching it with my mom. And I thought, I was like, this movie is like, all right, for whatever it is. And she let me watch it because she was like, this is the guy that wrote $1 Million Baby. And everybody was in love with that movie the year before. Mm-hmm. And Brokeback was so controversial and really like the world wasn't ready for it in a lot of ways. After what happened with Power of the Dog, I still don't think that the world's ready for it because it kind of has the similar undertones of that. But yeah, it's what happens like when we talked about it on.
I mean, it can be the worst thing to happen to a movie's.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with Green Book. We talked about it with Coda a couple of weeks ago when we did.
I think Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's hurt.
Totally hurt it.
I think ordinary people and Raging Bull fans, like you know what I mean. Like it's totally hurt that. But I mean, Roger Ebert gave it like 4 stars. It was like one of his favorite movies of the year, Crash, and. And Raj is always right.
He's not invincible.
Well, he's always right. You know what I mean?
What did he give King Kong?
I think he gave it 3.5.
Yeah, that sounds.
I want to say I'm right on that. But
shout out to the Letterboxd community. More people have logged Cronenberg's Crash than Haggis's Crash. So
he gave King Kong 4 stars.
Oh shit! Never mind.
Stars.
He gave it the same rating as Crash.
There are astonishments to behold in Peter Jackson's new King Kong, but one sequence, relatively subdued, holds the key to the movie's success. I guess he's talking about the part where Anne and Kong soft chew together.
Yeah.
Cinema magic.
This is also Brokeback Mountain, Jay. Capote, good movie. Bennett Miller, where are you? We need more movies from you, sir. Clooney's Good Night and Good Luck. And little guy named Steven Spielberg directed Munich. Top tier Steven Spielberg.
I freaking love Munich.
Munich
rules. That movie is so good.
And I love Good Night and Good Luck. That's actually my favorite film of the year. I don't know if I give it Best Picture. I think I would give it a Brokeback. But
Did New World come out this year?
Yeah, I think New World's out this year, right?
Yeah. If a Malick movie comes out, it's my favorite. So
that's his favorite filmmaker.
It's just a rule.
History of Violence, David Cronenberg.
There you go.
Good movie.
Memories of Murder.
Oh, was this Miami Vice?
I think that was the year after.
Is that the year after? Oh, okay. Well,
War of the Worlds. Good movie.
I'm not a big War of the Worlds guy, but I'm going down the rabbit hole of rewatching Spielberg again, just because I want to. And not that I have to like have a reason for this show or to any of you out there, because Steven Spielberg rules. But that's one that I hope is better on the rewatch, because like I recently rewatched Bridge of Spies and I was low on that, and then
come on now,
and then I've seen The Light because Bridge of Spies rules. But Sean, do you have a
War of the Worlds is sick, so you need to watch that again, Ryan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, Sean. Well, it's going on the list of like
Domino came out this year.
Oh, Domino came out?
Yeah.
Love Domino.
Very incoherent Tony Scott movie.
It's a normal movie.
Yeah.
No, we did Tony Scott last year. That movie rules.
I like Domino.
Sean, do you have a favorite Tony Scott movie?
True Romance is very important to me. Gosh. I mean, anything that he did with Denzel, I think, is at worst incredibly entertaining.
Yeah. Jay's is Man on Fire?
Man on Fire is mine.
And mine's Crimson Tide. So like, yeah. Shout out Deja Vu. I was thinking about that recently.
Crimson Tide probably number 2.
Crimson Tide rules
for me.
Yeah.
Man on Fire makes me cry.
Yeah.
Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop 2, The Hunger. These are undeniable. These are all fun.
Good
movies.
director.
I was thinking about Deja Vu recently because of Val Kilmer and how underrated I think that movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of his last big studio movies.
Yeah. And he's really good in it. It's like those scenes where it's
time with Tony.
Yeah. And he's just like wonderful.
And Top Gun.
Yeah, exactly. Top Gun's pretty good too.
That's just such a fit director and actor. Two guys who are just incredibly weird.
Yeah.
Two big personalities there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would you guys have nominated King Kong in any other category outside of the 4 that it got, or would you even nominate it in those categories? You can throw out a category. I'll read it for you, Sean. If there's,
I can give it Stooms.
You would? God damn it! I can't believe that.
Yeah,
why not?
Okay. I think the visual effects is more than earned. That prize. I'd be curious.
It was
up against that year.
King Kong, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds does some of the War of the Worlds stuff is really good.
That stuff's terrifying.
Yeah,
I remember that, like the sound design of War of the Worlds.
Ground,
and I remember seeing that as a little bit younger, like that summer, I guess is when that came out. Yeah. And the vaporization that Spielberg would do to people would just scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Remember that?
Yeah, the boarding the ferry sequence too is fucking.
The stuff with Tim Robbins underground in the house is great. Well, I mean, it's just Steven Spielberg. He's just like really good at building tension. Like he's pretty good at his job, I'd say.
Good filmmaker.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that new movie. Man.
Yeah, new sci-fi film. Yeah,
new Alien.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Sean, do you have a favorite Spielberg
movie? Yeah.
Favorite Spielberg movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaws.
Okay, Jaws. Okay, that's fair.
Seen Jaws? You guys seen that?
Yes, I've seen. Yeah.
That's the shark one.
Is that the
Jaws, Jurassic Park, Raiders, Close Encounters. These are all perfect films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big.
I really like West Side Story and The Fabelmans. I think those are both.
I think Fabelmans I think Fabelmans might be a top 5 film of the decade so far.
Catch Me If You Can is the one where I'm like, that one's for me.
Great.
Catch Me If You Can is wonderful.
Saving Private Ryan. These are all 5-star movies.
Yeah.
These are all great.
This man rarely misses.
Mm-hmm.
I even like Tintin.
Can't get there with you.
Solid.
Can't get there with you.
I like.
You can't go there with me.
P-Jack.
No.
He was going to make the next one.
Do you go? Jay likes Warhorse. Would you go to the Warhorse? No.
I like Warhorse.
No, thank you.
Take a ride with him on the Warhorse?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, we try around here at least a little bit. What did you say, Stooms, Jay? Real quickly.
I would give costumes. That's probably it. I mean, again, this movie is
Memoirs of a Geisha one.
Something.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton film. Just an eyesore of a movie. Mrs. Henderson Presents Pride and Prejudice. Joe Wright's film that's in theaters right now at the
great film.
Great film. And Walk the Line. So yeah, Stooms could have probably made it in there.
Sure.
For sure. Sean Fennessey, thank you so much for being on this silly show that we do.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Talking about King Kong, a movie that we all ask our question, why did you come on and do it? And we answered it.
I don't know.
Just out of curiosity. Just hang out with us. We found out some stuff about you, and we'll have to have you back on.
I'm waiting for the monkey trash episode of The Big Picture.
I'm going to give that some thought.
76 Kong.
There you go.
We need a peg of some kind. We need another Planet of the Apes film, I think, to make that work.
Sean, can you tell everybody where, of course, they can find you and all your work? And if you could give a recommendation of the week for everybody out there, it could be a television show, movie, something that you've been watching recently that you're fascinated with.
Sure. You can find me on The Big Picture, which is a podcast that I co-host with Amanda Dobbins on the Ringer Podcast Network. You can hear it anywhere you get your podcasts, but use Spotify because that's the building that I'm recording from right now. You can hear me on a whole bunch of other shows on the network as well, including The Rewatchables, the Prestige TV podcast, Bandsplain, 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, New York with John Jastrzemski. What other shows am I on with some regularity? Anyway, one thing I can recommend to you guys, don't have a movie or a TV show. I've been listening to Chris Isaak's debut album Silvertone from 1985 recently.
I love this.
Wow. Chris Isaak popped up because I was watching Val, the documentary about Val Kilmer that he sort of co-directed. There's a sequence where he's backstage getting ready to perform a play with Sean Penn and Kevin Bacon at the beginning of this film. All three of those guys turned down The Outsiders, made by Francis Ford Coppola, to perform in this play together. And they're listening to Silvertone. They're listening to Living for Your Lover. And Val's singing along. And just got me feeling that post-Presley, rockabilly, weird 80s revival that Isaac was a part of. Isaac also significant figure in movies, appeared in Silence of the Lambs, David Lynch projects. Darn good actor in his own right. It's a cool album. Check it out if you can.
Yeah, awesome. We'll have to check that out this week. Thank you, Sean.
Crazy how much Val Kilmer's son sounds like his dad.
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah.
Good actor.
Yeah. Jay? Same drill.
Yeah. Letterboxd J Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter, any writing I'm doing over at awardswatch.com. My recommendation, not going to be a movie either, actually was going to do music as well, and it's a very basic choice, but one of my friends recently was like, hey, think Radiohead's coming out with a new album. That's the word on the street. I said, I think you're lying, but that makes me want to go listen to some more Radiohead. The most important Radiohead album for me is In Rainbows. So I've just been on repeat in Rainbows. Great album. Quite like that band. Go listen to In Rainbows again. I know you've listened to it already, but do it again.
Is there a favorite song you have from In Rainbows, Jay?
Oh, I think Reckoner. No. I think Reckoner is my favorite.
Huge fan of Reckoner.
Yeah. They played that. I saw them at Bonnaroo 2012. They played that song. That was their encore song. And there were fireworks going off everywhere. And it was one of the moments, one of capital T, capital M moments. Yeah. It was amazing.
That's my favorite Radiohead album too. Sean?
We were the right age.
Radiohead album favorite?
Well, In Rainbows is up there. I did an episode of Dissect where we did a Radiohead draft with Cole Kuchna and Chris Ryan, and I drafted Body Snatchers. I remember vividly because I love Body Snatchers.
Love that song.
Rainbows is up there. I was in high school when OK Computer came out. Like, you can't even begin to fathom what that was like.
That album's perfect.
Brain altering that was for a 15-year-old. So that Kid A, I don't know, just that whole stretch run of like 1996 through 2013. They were just magical. They were fascinating. So I hope your friend is right, and a new record is coming.
Yeah, because there's nothing.
He's a music photographer, so I guess he heard some.
Great.
God, I hope that's good intel. Well, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and on Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. If you like podcasts, we do the main show that's on Mondays because it's on Thursdays, iTunes and Spotify 5-star reviews. While you're over on the website, please sign up for the newsletter. It's the best place to get all of our news, reviews, interviews, and podcasts into you all in one place. I'm going to actually recommend a television series. I've been watching a lot of TV. There's a lot of TV out right now. And I've been recommending a lot of television more than films right now. I started watching Andor. I didn't watch the first season because I didn't think that it was going to be good based off of just how Star Wars has been tracking the last couple of years.
Some talent behind the scenes.
Yeah. But it's got my guy, Tony Gilroy, who had made one of my favorite films of the last 20 years in Michael Clayton. Sean, it's part of his 25 for 25 there at the Ringer. They did Michael Clayton, and when I saw that, I felt like I felt vindicated because I was like, yes, it definitely is one of the 25 best of the last 25 years. And he did a lot of the rewrites on Rogue One, a Star Wars film that I'm like kind of mixed on mostly. But I started watching this, and the DNA of Michael Clayton is very much inside of Andor, and it's a very dark and hopeful yet cynical look at the rebellion from the first couple of episodes that I've been in, and I'm really digging it. And I've heard this second season is phenomenal. Sean, I don't know if you watched any of the second season yet.
I haven't. It's queued up literally for this weekend.
But I've heard nothing but glowing things from people, and it's just nice to live in a world where there's a Star Wars product that is actually good and that everybody can agree on. As much as I'm a Last Jedi defender, I know that there are a lot of people that hate it. But I am liking Andor so far, and Jay, I think you like it too. So
I might have to boot up Disney Plus for something that isn't a program for my 2-year-old.
That's totally fair.
And the Goofy movie documentary.
Yeah,
that we were all clamoring for.
You know, one documentary I can recommend on Disney Plus, since we're just recommending things, is the second season of Light and Magic, which is very good. Speaking of digital effects in King Kong, this is the series about ILM, George Lucas's effects company, which Weta would not exist without ILM.
Yeah.
And the second season is focused on the production of the prequels and the digital effects that went into making the prequels and some of the complex issues and controversies around Jar Jar and a lot of other things. And it's unusually good for this kind of a thing, for this kind of like authorized, Disney endorsed kind of thing. The first season was directed by Lawrence Kasdan. The second season is directed by Joe Johnston. So,
wow.
Worth checking out.
Sean, will you be seeing the Revenge of the Sith re-release?
I've been needing a prequels revisit, but I don't know if I need to go to theaters for that. I was on board with Revenge of the Sith. I was not on board with Phantom Menace. But I don't know. You were the chosen one,
Yeah, I have the high ground. I'm not going to go to the theater and see it either. It is always weird that like they did the re-release of Phantom Menace when the anniversary came out for that, and they did the re-release for obviously now Revenge of the Sith.
Skip Attack of the Clones,
and they totally skipped Attack of the Clones. They were
cool stuff. There's some cool stuff in that movie.
I mean there is, but it was just weird. They were like, yeah, we're not going to do an anniversary for that. Like,
there's no cult to it. Like the Phantom Menace and Sith,
that is true.
They have cults around.
I just want physical media of the original Star Wars trilogy films. No bullshit.
It will be buried with George Lucas.
It's not available.
Can't get them anywhere. It's really sad. Thank you so much again, Sean, for coming on. Next week we will be back. We'll be talking about The Lovely Bones. Until then, we will see you all next time.